There are no more days to count, only the long, unbroken breath of what remains. It is a soft, uneven sound, like the lungs of an old machine struggling to remember life. The walls sigh as the void monastery exhales the stale incense of another sleepless cycle. Candles gutter in their sockets, their smoke tracing faint symbols that vanish before I can read them. I have never seen the sun. I am told it still exists somewhere beyond the vaults, a pale coin lost in the fog of the Imperium. But here, beneath layers of steel, we are illuminated only by the ache of devotion and the flicker of lumen-flame. The Emperor's light reaches us through our hands. I am a scribe of the administratum, and my duty is to transcribe the dreams of the mad. They bring us sanctioned psychers, their tongues still smoking from the touch of the black ships. They are made to speak through pain, through prayer, and we are made to write. No word may be lost, no breath omitted. Each syllable is sacred because it was born from suffering. The ink smells of iron and sanctified oil. When I dip my quill into it, I feel the faintest pulse, as though the ink itself resists the task. It clings to the metal nib, like blood reluctant to leave the vein. Every mark I make is an act of faith, a tiny, trembling attempt to hold back the tide of unknowing that lies beyond language. We are told that our writing keeps the galaxy sane, that to catalogue the impossible is to contain it. I have believed this for most of my life. I must still believe it, even now. Our workroom lies deep in the monastery's spine. It is vast, lined with endless tiers of desks and lamps, the air thick with wax fumes and the murmuring rasp of quills. The sound is constant, thousands of pens moving as one body, one prayer. When I close my eyes, the rhythm becomes oceanic. It fills the skull, until thought itself seems a kind of tide. I find comfort in that. Order is a form of love. This morning, as always, I rise at the fourth bell. I wash my hands in the basin of lye and ash, tracing the sign of the Aquila across my chest. The overseer's voice crackles from the vox altar. Through writing we bind. Through binding we preserve. We answer in unison, though some lips barely move. There is little left of us that is not parchment. The day's subject arrives, an old man with eyes like dried ink. He mutters constantly, even as the attendants strap him into the restraint chair. When he speaks, the words are uneven, stuttering, yet they fall into rhythm almost by accident. The tower ascends, the mirror breathes, the flame forgets. I write every word. I do not question. To question is to stray. The Emperor reads through our obedience, not our interpretation. Still, the words linger in the mind longer than they should. Tower, mirror, flame. Simple things, yet they hum faintly inside me, as though the syllables themselves vibrate at a pitch beyond hearing. By the 8th hour, the subject has expired. The overseer seals the transcript and blesses it with incense. The scent mingles with the metal air until it tastes almost sweet. The others return to their stations. I remain, cleaning my quill, watching the residue of ink spiral in its jar. For a heartbeat, I think I see movement, a flicker beneath the surface, like something alive turning over. I laugh quietly. Fatigue breeds superstition. Later, in the dormitory, the lamps dim to their regulated glow. I can never sleep immediately. The rhythm of transcription lingers in my fingers. I flex my hand until the phantom motion fades. The others snore in their cells. But the silence between them is not empty, it breathes. I swear I can hear the parchment from the workroom below, shifting and settling, as though restless. I dream of words, not sentences, not meaning just the shapes themselves. Black veins crawling across white skin, curling into letters I know I should recognize but can't. When I wake, my palms are marked with faint stains, as if I had been writing in my sleep. In the morning, Overseer Caledrin inspects our desks. His face is as thin as the parchment we use, his eyes gray as spent wax. You will find purity in repetition, he says, not for the first time. Do not seek understanding, the Emperor alone interprets. We answer as one. The Emperor interprets. It should be enough, but I find myself searching the new transcripts for echoes of the old ones. Across different psychers, I begin to see the same words reappearing, slightly altered, slightly rearranged. Ascend, mirror, blue. Sometimes in isolation, sometimes embedded in nonsense. At first I think it coincidence, but the recurrence becomes impossible to ignore. I start keeping a private scrap of parchment beneath my robes where I copy the repeated words for study. Not analysis, only curiosity. A harmless devotion to pattern, I tell myself. Order must be maintained even within madness. Perhaps the Emperor shows his order through recurrence. At night, I read the list aloud under my breath, the way others might pray. The words fall into strange harmony. There is music in them, quiet and pulsing. Sister Archivist Helia hears me once. She moves like a shadow, her footsteps lost in the whisper of robes. "Brother," she murmurs, standing just behind me. "Your voice carries." I startle, bowing my head. "Forgive me. I meant no..." She gestures for silence. Her eyes glimmer with candlelight, gold caught in oil. "Do you believe he listens?" "The Emperor," I ask. She smiles faintly. "Who else?" I answer carefully. He reads through us. Her smile fades into something smaller, sadder. "Then pray." He never writes back. She leaves before I can reply. Her words linger longer than they should. When next I dip my quill, the ink clings tighter to the nib. It feels thicker, warmer, as if alive. I tell myself it's the temperature of the room, heat rising from the lamps. But when I press the nib to parchment, I swear I feel resistance. The first line trembles slightly, the ink spreading wider than it should. I wipe it clean, start again. I finish my assigned transcription late. My eyes ache. The candlelight swims. When I close the ink jar, I glimpse movement again, a shimmer like blue lightning under the surface. I stare until the flame gutters and the shimmer fades. Sleep does not come easily. When it does, it is filled with the sound of quills scratching, thousands of them, but all out of rhythm. The sound becomes waves, and beneath the waves, something breathes. When the fourth bell calls us again, I feel as though I have never stopped working. The fourth bell peals like a thin blade drawn across stone, and we file into the scriptorum in our quiet procession, each of us a wick waiting for the match. The lamps lift their trembling halos. The air tastes of carbon and dusted incense. I settle at my desk and lay out my implements as a priest would lay out relics. Quill like a rib, knife like a tooth, blotter like a folded tongue. Ritual steadies the hand steadies the mind. The day's first subject is a young woman with a bruised dark blindfold and lips that press each syllable as if biting it in half. I can hear the attendant's boots shift against the grating as she is chained into the restraint chair. The Vox sigil clicks once. We begin. "Name?" The overseer asks. "Gone," she says, and then her voice turns sideways, no louder, only misaligned, like a choir that has turned its faces to the wall. I wake to the sound of the mirror breathing. The tower is not a tower. The stair is a wound that climbs itself. He teaches with fire that cools. I copy. I do not interpret. I bind, as I have been bound. My quill drinks the ink with a greed that makes my fingers tense. The strokes go clean, precise, obedient. Yet beneath every line there is that tremor so slight, so soft that makes each word seem to shiver as it settles. "Color?" asks the overseer, as always. For the records, "Blue," she breathes. Not the blue of sky, the blue that remembers when it was black. Behind me, hundreds of other pens keep time scratching, halting, scratching as if we are insects chewing our way through a forest of parchment. I do not look up. Looking up invites comparison. Comparison invites thought. Thought is a door I must keep closed. Do you see the Emperor? The overseer asks, too softly for protocol. I see the place where sight is going, she says. And I do not write that line. We are instructed to omit the unpermitted inquiries of overseers and the unsanctioned answers of the weak. Still, the sentence lingers in the air like incense that refuses to disperse. Halfway through the fourth folio, she laughs. A dry sound, like a page tearing. The attendants tense. The vox sigil dims. The laugh tapers into a whisper I can barely hear. Again, a child's word, spoken with an elder's fatigue. It chills me, because it is the first word I ever wrote here, and I remember the small mouth that made it. I write it once, then twice, then I stop, because she is no longer speaking. The attendants do what they must. The overseer marks the seal. The sheet curls a little as the ink dries. The curl feels like a hand closing. The body is taken away. The air becomes, briefly, ordinary. When the bell marks the rest hour, I remain. The others trickle to the refectory, their robes mouthing at their ankles like waves. I lean back, let my eyes close, count my breaths as the masters taught. 7 in, 7 held, 7 out. It slows the heart, dissolves stray thought. On the 8th cycle, I hear footsteps. They do not match the cadence of the room. Brother, Helia murmurs. I open my eyes. She stands just beyond the halo of my lamp, half formed by shadow, her hands folded within her sleeves. Her perfume is not perfume. It is the faint, bitter scent of dust, older than fire. You linger, she says. I prefer the room when it is only its own breathing, I answer, and immediately regret the intimacy of the phrase. She tilts her head, as if listening to something beneath my words. You've been charting them. The private scrap of parchment prickles against my ribs like a hidden sin-turned blade. I bow my head, only to ensure no contamination of the texts. Recurrence can indicate a leak in the soul, she says gently. Or in the web beneath the soul. I don't understand. Good. She steps closer. The lamp finds the edge of her cheek and lays a line of light along it. Brother, hear me. There are prayers that exist to be said, and there are prayers that exist to be heard. Do you know the difference? I think of the child who said again, and of the old man who said mirror and flame. I think of this morning's blue. I shake my head. Neither do I, she whispers. Pray that the Emperor keeps it so. When she leaves, the absence she makes is heavy. I lift my quill, meaning to clean it, meaning to set the desk to rights before the next bell. But my hand hangs in the air, listening, not for footsteps, for words. I realize I have been listening for words the way others listen for the sea. The bell returns us to obedience. New subject, new lamp, new sheet. This one is a boy with a voice like static, each syllable sanding against the next. He speaks of a stair that descends into its own roof, of birds that sing with closed beaks, of a fire that does not warm. The list beneath my robe thrums with every mirror, every blue, until it feels less like a note and more like a wound. The hour lengthens. The lamps sweat. The room grows warm enough that wax weeps down the candles in slow white tears. I shift, flex my fingers, resume. The boy's voice falters. A pause. A breath. Then, without sound, his lips shape a word that the ear refuses. The quill writes it anyway. I do not recognize the letters, though they are made of familiar strokes. The shape of it bypasses sense and plants itself in the softest part of the mind. I feel, absurdly, as if someone has placed a coin on my tongue and told me to keep it there. I blink. The word is gone, not crossed out, not faded. Gone. The fibers of the parchment look untouched, as if nothing had ever laid upon them. My skin cools. I look to the lamp. Its flame leans as if a draught has passed. I look to the ink jar. Beneath the meniscus, a darker thread uncoils and coils again. I glance to either side. No one has noticed me freeze. The room's rhythm goes on. Faithful. Blind. The boy stares ahead with blindfolded calm, as if the world beyond the cloth is a place of great clarity. I raise my hand. Overseer Caladrin materializes as if from a fold in the air. I whisper the truth as regulation requires. A lost line. An erased line. He considers the page, nostrils flaring with the dry, hawk-like irritation that always lives in his face. Ink sometimes fails, he says. The Emperor removes what should not be bound. It did not fade, I say, unable to help the tremor in my voice. Brother. The word is a reprimand and a prayer. The Emperor removes what should not be bound. I bow. I do not argue. Obedience is a fortification. Doubt is a house with too many doors. He returns to his rounds. I set my jaw, lower my head, and continue to write. But now, the breath has changed. Not mine, the room's. The collective exhale of parchment and lamps and oil and wrists and candle smoke the sum of noises that makes our labor sound like weather has slipped a half beat. It is minutely wrong, the way a hymn becomes eerie if one voice delays by the thickness of a heartbeat. The sense of wrongness is so slight I cannot prove it even to myself. It lands somewhere behind the eyes and waits. When the final bell of the cycle tolls its note, drawn out so thin it feels like a hair laid across the teeth, the vault guards seal the day's folios. We chant the benediction of final silence. I have never failed to feel cleansed by it. There is a taut, clean joy in saying simple words in unison. But tonight the syllables catch, and the line "through writing we bind" exits my mouth, as "through writing we bend," and the error hangs in the air like a cracked plate. No one turns. No one rebukes me. I do not think anyone heard. Yet shame blooms hot in my chest, a bright, ridiculous flower. I taste metal. I lurch in my place and press my palm to the desk until the sting subsides. We extinguish our lamps. We bow. We file out. I do not go to the dormitory. I remain, standing in the edgeless dark, while the last ember in the wick limbs the brass lip of the ink jar. The room is a ship crossing an ocean of sleep, and I am the single passenger awake to hear the board settle. I listen until the listening becomes its own sound. At last I strike a tinder. The lamp finds its shape again, a small, oval world inside a much larger night. I loosen the stopper on the ink jar and hold it close, the way a man might hold a bowl of water to see what it remembers of the sky. The surface is ordinary, rippled by my breath. I wait without knowing for what. Something like a star kindles under the skin of the ink. It is so small, so reluctant, that I might have doubted it had the lamp flickered at the same moment, as if answering. The mote moves, dragging a thin tail as it turns. Colors whisper within it, not the gaudy colors of banners, but the colors that live between names. Blue most of all. Not blue like cloth, blue like distance, blue like a verb. The surface shivers. The star melts into a thread. The thread touches the tip of my quill. I do not remember lifting the quill, yet it is in my hand. My fingers tremble with the delicacy with which I once held a child's wrist to feel the faint beat there. Long ago, when I lived planetside, before this life consumed all other lives. The nib descends. It kisses the parchment with the weight of a breath. The ink does not spread. It moves. It curves of its own accord, a single letter unfurling with the certainty of a fern opening. It is not a letter I know, and yet I know where it is going. The motion is graceful, almost kind. I cannot pretend I am not complicit. My hand hangs above it, like a useless blessing, while the blue line writes itself, writing me, writing the small gasp that leaves my throat and floats before my face as if visible. The line halts, waits. I realize, with a tenderness that terrifies me, that it is listening. I whisper because reverence is a reflex I cannot kill. The Emperor protects. The blue deepens, as if drawing breath. Beyond the lamp's circle, somewhere in the dark of the stacks, a floorboard answers with a mild, conversational creak. And I know, with a knowledge that does not pass through thought, that I am not alone in the room. Perhaps I never have been. The darkness smells suddenly of cooled metal, of rain that has not yet fallen, of the moment before a word becomes sound. The ink brightens a pale coal, a faint flame without heat, and I understand, not with mind but with marrow, that the sentence is waiting for its next stroke. Waiting, not as an order waits, but as a question waits. The point of the quill hovers like a held breath. Helia's warning returns to me in her exact voice. Then, pray. He never writes back. I lower my hand, because prayer is nothing if not the courage to complete a shape. The second stroke begins of its own will, and the blue is no longer memory. It is present. It is here. It is a blade laid flat across the page. The curve joins the first curve with a tenderness that feels like mockery. And I can no longer tell whether the writing belongs to my hand or to the room or to the thing that is not the room but wears it as a mouth. It stops again, a hair's width from forming something I might read. The light from the lamp seems dimmer. The flame looks suddenly small, as if embarrassed to be seen. A silence blinks open between heartbeats, huge and soft and cold. I lift my eyes. The lamp glass holds a distorted reflection. My face, yes, but slow, as if it had been listening to and must now pretend it has not. In the reflection, my hand moves before I do. In the reflection, the blue line is already finished and spells a word that makes my scalp prickle with the memory of rain. I drop my gaze back to the real page, only to find the stroke still undone. Patient, inevitable. Something inside me bows. It is not rebellion. It is not surrender. It is the bow that precedes any true reading. The quill descends, the last curve closes, and the letter completes itself with an almost audible sigh, as if relieved to finally exist. It shines for the length of a single breath. Then the shine goes inward, settling into a calm old blue, the blue that remembers when it was black. I touch the page. The fiber is warm. For a long time I stand without moving. And the room stands with me. And the monastery breathes. And the galaxy outside does whatever the galaxy must. When at last I find my voice, it emerges as a threadbare whisper that would embarrass any priest. The Emperor protects. I say again, very softly. I think he only listens. One. And the blue, almost kindly, curves toward the next word. I wake already mid-sentence. My mouth shaping a word my ears have not yet heard. The lamp is a dull coin. The ink jar is a dark lung. I rinse my hands in ash and lye, and the water makes a thin sound, like the smoothing of a page. The fourth bell carves the air into obedience. We go to our stations. The scriptorum's breath is steady, a tide of small sounds, boots seeking their lattice, chairs inching, 100 throats clearing quietly so as not to offend the page. My quill lies where I left it, its nib catching the first light like a sliver of bone. I arrange my implements with a tenderness I reserve for nothing else, not even sleep. Knife, blotter, rule, seal. Each has a weight that tells the wrist how to believe. They bring in 3 subjects at once. It is unusual. We are not told why. The attendants fasten wrists and necks to restraint hoops polished smooth by necessity. The overseer raises 2 fingers, and the vox sigil clicks alive. We are recording now, and whatever passes the lips of the broken will be given to the paper like a child to a cradle. The leftmost subject speaks first, an older woman with the posture of someone who remembered standing. The tower is inside the tower, she says. The stair is an organ that climbs itself. Her hands twitch against the metal. I write without looking at her, repeating each syllable in the quiet of my mind as I set it down. The middle subject whispers, the rightmost hums. For a moment, their voices trespass on one another, and the ink, eager and reluctant, tries to decide which stream to follow. The script wants to braid them. I force my hand to separate what the voices offer together. I do not look up, but I know the moment Overseer Caladrin's eyes rest on me. His gaze presses like a seal. It says, "You will copy. You will not interpret. You will be small enough to be holy." The list beneath my robe, my hidden scrap, warms against the skin, and I imagine it has its own heartbeat. I hate the thought. I refuse it. I copy. By the second folio, the middle subject begins to repeat. Not the same sentence, but the same fragments in new arrangements, as if language were a deck of cards and a sleepless hand kept shuffling them. Mirror. Ascend. Feather. Blue. The words fall into an internal rhyme so quiet that only the fingers can hear it. My pen strokes start to time themselves to that rhythm. The letters look obedient. Underneath, something sways. Sister Archivist Helia passes behind me. She does not stop. Her shadow crosses the lamp. For a heartbeat, my writing thickens, then thins. When the light returns, I see that I have left a hair's breadth, more space between the lines than regulation allows. It is a trivial sin. It feels like a door. The rightmost subject hums louder. It is not a tune. It is the sound of a kettle that never boils. The stare is a throat, the older woman says. I put my foot where a word should be. I copy. I copy. I copy until the words become texture, until each letter feels like the tooth in a comb. Then, without intention, my hand strays. It slides a column to the left and writes the older woman's word inside the younger man's line, as if I were stitching two skins together. The error freezes me. I blot, but the ink is already dry. The joined phrase sits there, composed and inevitable. Mirror bend. My breath shortens. I do not ring for correction. I lock my wrist, return to the right column, and proceed. I promise myself that in the rest hour, I will scrape the floor with the knife until the parchment forgets I ever made it. The middle subject shudders. The attendants tighten the cuffs. The humming stops. Silence grows taller than the room. I am listening, the middle subject says. It is speaking in blue. The skin at the back of my neck cools. I feel, absurdly, as if someone has set a bowl of water on my head and I must hold still or drown. I write the sentence. I write it again because he says it again, slower, like a student reciting a catechism he barely understands. A low tremor moves through the vault, a heavy footfall nowhere near feet. We all feel it. The lamps shiver in their brackets as if embarrassed. Overseer Caladrin raises his head one grain of sand's height and lowers it again. Continue. I sneak one glance at Helia. She is not looking at the subjects. She is looking at our pages. The older woman coughs up a line of prayer and swallows it. Whatever she meant to say dies behind her teeth. The rightmost subject hums again, but now there is a pulse to it, like a hand closing and opening under a blanket. The leftmost says gently, as if to a child, "Do not make a word of it. If you make a word, it will have somewhere to land." My hand pauses of its own accord. The sentence is disobedient to copy. It advises erasure. It suggests mercy across the breach. I write it anyway. Something in me, something that loves neat margins and lined drawers, tightens as if against a winter gust. In the rest hour, I do not go to the refectory. I remain with the 3 folios, the cracked wax, the blotter fat, with a day's regret. I dig my knife into the place where mirror bend stitched itself like a thought I had not meant to think. The parchment fibers lift in a pale curl. I smooth them, flat with the pad of my thumb. The cut line gleams like a healed scar. A voice as calm as the bottom of a well says, "Brother." I turn. Helia stands 2 desks away, not looking at me, palms on the wood, head bent like a penitent. "Do you remember the first word you wrote?" she asks. Again. I say before I have decided to answer. Of course. She nods as if we share an old, sad joke. It is a good word for this place. Is it a test? I ask, though I do not know what I am asking. If it repeats, she considers. The silence between us has a grain to it now, as if we could sand splinters from it. Repetition is not always a loop, she says. Sometimes it is a spiral. Sometimes it is a ladder lying on its side. We aren't to interpret, I say, the way a man might remind himself he is married. We aren't, she agrees. But the page may. Her gaze flicks to my knife, to the clean lifted curl of fiber. Be careful what you take out, she says. Something else will come to fill the space. When she moves away, I press both hands flat to the desk to still their shaking. The wood is warm, alive with the accumulated heat of bodies that have believed too hard for too long. The bell calls us back. The attendants bring the next subject. A boy with a bruise at the ridge of his collarbone, blindfold too large for his face. He sits very straight and does not test the straps, as if he has already resolved not to move again. The Vox sigil ticks. His first breath emerges as a sigh that is not despair but relief. I found the stair, he says. It found me back. The line arrives in my hand before it arrives in my ear. The ink runs thin on the first curve and thick on the second, like a pulse skipping. And the blue that has not yet existed in this room glances across the surface of the black-like light seen through closed eyes. I blink, and the hint is gone, and the line lies quiet, obedient, ordinary. I lean closer. The letters smell faintly of cooled metal. Color? Overseer Caledron asks. Not because the question matters, but because the ritual does. The boy's mouth opens. A tone that is almost a word presses against the air and does not enter it. He closes his mouth, then says, polite as any novice, the color that forgets itself. I write blue. The word looks wrong and right at once, as if it has taken its bucket name off and stands there in its skin. My quill hesitates, as if there were a step I have not learned. The boy tilts his head slightly, as if listening to an instruction that is not in this room. He is teaching me the letters, he says. He teaches by moving the hand I do not have. Who is he? The overseer asks, breaking his own rule again. The boy smiles in a way that has nothing to do with joy. The one who writes back. My hand goes cold from the fingertips inwards, like paper being wetted with a sponge. Continue, Caledron says, to the boy or to me or to the room. I lower my face until my breath warms the page. The fibers shine with a health that is almost flesh. Deep in the ink jar, something turns over once and is still. I touch the nib to the margin to clean it, and the margin takes the dot and stretches it into a hairline curve toward the body of the text. A gesture so slight that a man less accustomed to watching letters stand up and lie down might not notice it at all. I notice. My wrist stiffens. The curve rests, very gentle, as if asking permission to exist. I lift the quill. The curve remains. The boy, without being prompted, speaks a word that does not pass through sound. It passes through meaning. The lamps pucker and resume. The breath of the room catches and releases as one animal, and the small, patient curve at the margin inclines itself a fraction more toward the sentence that waits. And I understand that today the choir is not only above the ink, it is in it. The breath of the vault settles again, yet the quiet is wrong. It feels stretched thin, like parchment pulled too tight over a frame. The boy sits perfectly still, head bowed, mouth closed. The attendants glance at the overseer, waiting for the signal to remove him, but Caledron does not move. His eyes are fixed on the line I just wrote. It glows only for an instant, a faint, interior sheen, as if light were passing through the fibers instead of falling on them. Then it fades. He looks away, muttering a prayer that is mostly exhale. Continue, he says again. But this time it sounds like surrender. I obey. I always obey. The next words arrive slowly, like stones pushed through water. He is teaching the song of stillness. The quill answers before I do. My hand follows the weight of the sentence as though the grammar itself has gravity. Each stroke lands heavier, thicker, until the letters are less ink than relief carved into skin. When the page is full, I seal it and lift the folio. It is warm, almost fevered. The warmth remains even after the wax hardens. I feel it against my palms all the way to the storage alcove. There are hundreds of such alcoves, each one a niche of murmured secrets, every shelf lined with bound volumes that no human voice will read aloud again. I slide the folio into its slot, whispering the benediction of quiet storage. The words taste metallic on my tongue. Somewhere inside the stack, something shifts a soft rasp, the shuffle of pages turning by themselves. When I return to my desk, the boy is gone. Only the straps remain, damp where his wrists had been. Helia stands near the empty chair, gaze on the floor. The lamps behind her flare once, then dim. Another loss? I ask, my voice smaller than I intend. She shakes her head. A correction. The word lands cold. She doesn't elaborate. The overseer rings the dismissal bell. We bow, file out, and the vault doors close with a sigh like lungs deflating. Sleep evades me. The dormitory smells of wax and linen, the ceiling low enough to touch. I lie staring at the faint glow that seeps through the vents, the afterlight of 1,000 lamps still burning below. My fingers twitch as though remembering work. The skin at the base of each nail is stained black. No amount of scrubbing can make it leave. When I finally drift, I dream of sound, not music, but vibration. The susurrus of quills moving at speeds too quick for human hands. The sound gathers into shape, becomes words without meaning, then meaning without words. I wake with my mouth open, mid-whisper. At morning bell, the corridors are filled with whispers not unlike my dream. Scribes speak to one another in glances, not words. Rumor travels faster than permission. Some say that the vault changed shape during the night, that one stair now leads nowhere, another to a door that opens on blank wall. Others say a book in the lower archives has begun to hum. I tell myself superstition breeds in repetition. That madness is simply the price of proximity to the Emperor's burden. Still, as I walk, I count the steps between turns, and the numbers do not match the ones I memorized years ago. In the refectory, Helia sits apart, the light from the lumen strips turning her eyes to Mercury. She looks up only once. Did you keep a copy of yesterday's transcript? I always keep a personal copy before storage, I say. Destroy it, she whispers, before it begins to listen. Before I can answer, Overseer Caledrin enters. Conversation folds itself back into silence. We eat in ritual rhythm 3 bites, 1 sip, 3 bites, and leave our bowls untouched at the end. He reminds us, through writing we bind. Through binding, we are bound. I think of the boy's voice saying, he is teaching me the letters. The next cycle begins with a change. New ink, darker than before, is distributed to every desk. The vials arrive unlabeled, sealed with blue wax instead of the usual red. When I unstop mine, the scent rises like wet metal and burnt ozone. Replacement batch, Caledrin says when someone dares ask. Imported from Mars itself, use sparingly. The first line I draw is impossibly smooth. The quill glides as if writing on oil. The letters gleam faintly before settling into matte black. My pulse quickens with a shameful joy. The perfection is intoxicating. Across the room, a scribe coughs a single, startled sound and drops his pen. When he stoops to retrieve it, the lamp above him flares blue for the span of a blink. No one speaks. The new subjects arrive, veiled and trembling. Their words come broken, half song, half sob. Yet beneath each utterance I sense the same undertone, the same almost melody threading through the noise. A unity we are forbidden to notice. I catch Helia's eye across the rows. She mouths a single word. Listen, and I do. At first it is nothing but rhythm, the scratch of pens, the breathing of the restrained, the pulse of the lamps. Then the rhythm coheres, aligning itself with the words spilling from their mouths and our hands alike. The noise becomes a harmony so subtle it might be imagined. The entire vault vibrates at the edge of hearing. A whisper builds in the ink itself. Each line I draw hums faintly, as if the letters resonate. The others hear it too. Some freeze, others write faster, afraid to fall out of tempo. Overseer Caledrin's voice cracks through the noise like a lash. "Continue!" So we do. Hundreds of quills striking the same pace, the same slant. The hum swells until the air thickens. Candles gutter sideways in the current of it. A single note rises, pure, impossibly soft, and for one brief, dreadful instant, I think I can distinguish words within the sound. Not speech, not prayer, a question. Then the note collapses, leaving only the scrape of quills and the smell of ozone. Helia stands beside me, pale as unlit wax. "Do you hear them?" she asks. "I hear us," I say. But even as I speak, I know it isn't true. When the final bell tolls, the lamps burn lower than before. The ink in my jar has turned darker, but when the light strikes it, something bright stirs beneath. The choir has gone silent, yet I feel its echo behind my eyes, a vibration that won't fade. Helia lingers at my desk. "It will begin soon," she says. "What will?" The answering. She leaves before I can ask more, and in her absence the silence feels too perfect, too deliberate, as if the air itself were waiting to be written upon. The lamps have begun to hum differently. The note is not higher or lower. It simply wavers, as if unsure which world it belongs to. The sound gathers along the ceiling like mist, pooling above us as we write. I have grown used to it, the way the vault seems to breathe in sympathy with our pens, but lately it has learned to hesitate. Between the ticks of the overseer's chronometer, there is a pause that feels like listening. This morning, I noticed that my ink jar reflects more than it should. Its brass rim once caught only the brief shape of my hand. But now it holds entire gestures, quill rising, quill falling, as if the jar were a small, patient eye. When I lean too close, I can see my own face swimming on its curved surface. The distortion used to comfort me. It reminded me that nothing real could live inside a reflection. Now, I am not certain. We are given new assignments, a higher class of transcripts, drawn from the nameless choir, a cluster of psychers whose voices had merged into one. Their words arrive through the vox conduits already half erased by interference. We are told not to reconstruct, only to record what remains. The words, or fragments of them, pulse with cadence rather than sense. It feels wrong to transcribe something that doesn't exist entirely. But the overseer insists that the emperor hears truth, even in what is missing. So I copy absence. Each page is a veil of small interruptions, syllables cut short, sentences folding into static. Yet, through the noise, a pattern returns again. Mirror, change, flame, blue. The same lexicon that has haunted every dream since Helia first whispered of translation. At first, I believed the repetition to be my fault. Perhaps I have carried the words from one transcript to another in error. But when I compare my pages with those of my peers, I see the same shapes emerging, identical down to the tremor of the ink. The same error cannot repeat across hundreds of hands, unless the fault lies in the light. The lamps have grown brighter, but their illumination no longer warms. Their radiance feels like cold water poured over metal, a sharp, sterile kind of day. Under that glare, the ink reflects the ceiling, and in that reflection, I sometimes see movement, a shimmer of blue like a breath trapped beneath the surface. I blink, and it is gone. During rest hour, Helia approaches with a sealed envelope. She moves carefully, every gesture deliberate, as though any sudden motion might break something fragile between us. "It's begun," she says. "The reflections are learning." Her voice trembles. not with fear but with awe. She unseals the envelope and slides a small shard of mirror glass onto my desk. The edges are dulled by age. Its surface bears scratches like thin runes. "Watch," she whispers. I tilt the shard to catch the lamplight. For an instant, I see myself tired eyes, quill-stained fingers. Then the image shifts. My reflection keeps writing after my hands have stilled. Each movement is a syllable, and each syllable is one of the forbidden words. I drop the glass. It lands face down, mercifully silent. Helia's expression softens. "They're not copies of us," she says. "They're the drafts. The true text writes there first. I want to ask who they are." But the word burns in my throat. She leaves me with the shard and the echo of her faith. I hide the mirror under my ledger. Later, as I bend over the day's transcript, my reflection in the ink jar watches me again. I test it. I raise my right hand. It raises its left. When I scratch my ear, it lags a heartbeat behind. But when I lower my gaze, it continues to stare, its eyes fixed not on my face, but on the words forming beneath my pen. It moves its lips as I write, silently reciting the lines before I finish them. When I stop, it keeps moving. I dip my quill again, pretending calm. The reflection leans closer, so close I can almost see its breath fogging the surface from within. Then, for the briefest moment, it blinks with a rhythm I do not recognize. 3 quick flutters, a pause, then one long closure. A code. I know it as I know my own heartbeat. The spacing mirrors the cipher we use to index archival seals. But why would my reflection speak in code? I repeat the pattern on the parchment, translating it through instinct rather than logic. The letters that emerge are not High Gothic, not any tongue I have studied. They resemble the symbols Helia once showed me on the folded scrap, angular yet flowing, like fire caught mid-dance. When the last curve is complete, the ink sinks deeper into the page. Not drying, descending. It leaves a faint depression behind, as if the parchment were breathing it in. A moment later, the lamp above my desk flickers and steadies. In that brief darkness, something answers from within the ink jar, a faint ripple, the echo of the same symbols written backward, mirrored perfectly. My stomach tightens. I whisper the Emperor's name, half in prayer, half in warning. But even as I do, a whisper answers, so soft it could be the sound of cooling metal. He listens too. I push my chair back. It scrapes against the stone, drawing the overseer's glare from across the vault. He lifts one finger, a warning of silence. I bow my head and return to my work, though my pulse drums like a second bell in my ears. The reflection smiles faintly, as if amused by my obedience. That night, the dormitory feels smaller. I dream of glass corridors winding through the monastery, each wall reflecting a version of myself at a different age. A child writing his first word, a young man reciting creed, an old man whose ink has turned to blood. At the corridor's end waits the shard of mirror Helia gave me, pulsing like a heartbeat. When I wake, the shard lies on my chest, though I left it buried beneath the ledger. Its surface is clean now, free of scratches. The glass reflects nothing but blue. I hear the faint sound of quills scratching beyond the dormitory door, though no shift is scheduled. The rhythm matches the pattern of my dream. When I open the door, the hallway beyond is empty, yet the sound continues, echoing softly, impossibly, from the walls themselves. The next cycle begins with silence that feels deliberate. The bells fail to sound. Instead, the vault wakes itself, one lamp at a time, each globe of light swelling like an eye opening after a long dream. The air smells faintly of ozone and heated glass. When I breathe, I taste copper. My reflection in the ink jar is waiting for me. It stands upright even before I sit. I think of Helia's warning that the reflections write first, and an unease settles behind my ribs, heavy as another heartbeat. We are fewer today, The benches on either side of me are empty, their quills laid neatly in the holders, their inkwells sealed. The overseer does not acknowledge the absence. "Begin the replication of sequence Delta," he orders, his voice stripped of inflection. The words hit the air and hang there like frost. The Vox conduit releases its feed, a low murmur, fragments of syllables that the living once spoke. They arrive as static more than language, yet the ink responds. Tiny vibrations travel through the jar, concentric rings blooming across its surface. I dip the quill and feel it pull, eager as a muscle remembering motion. The first line writes itself. My hand moves, yes, but without decision. The strokes curve in patterns that do not belong to the alphabet I know. They spiral inward, then break apart into filaments that shimmer faintly blue under the lamp. Around me, the other scribes continue as though nothing is wrong. Their heads sway slightly, the rhythm of the quills turning the room into a vast, patient metronome. I lean closer. The symbols are beautiful. They look like a tide turning. I whisper one aloud. The vault answers. A vibration hums through the floor, a low note that climbs the walls and settles in the skull. The lamps flicker in unison, their light bending into rings that drift across the ceiling. For a heartbeat, I see the reflection of all of us, rows of bent figures writing, then the reflections keep moving after we stop. Their pens scratch a few more lines and rest. Hold your places, the overseer commands. Helia's voice rises from the far row. Hold. But the reflections do not hold. They rise. Their shapes lift away from the polished metal of the desks, faint as breath on glass. They watch us with hollow brightness where faces should be. When the hum fades, they dissolve back into the surfaces, leaving the air dense with the smell of hot iron. No one speaks for several minutes. Then Caledrin clears his throat. Continue the line. The order breaks the spell. Pens resume their whisper. I try to obey, but the ink has thickened, clinging to the nib. When I stir it, a second shimmer moves within a second me. Smaller, distorted, writing faster. I cover the jar with my hand until the image dims. Do not look away, I remember. The phrase from the paper that had written itself. Perhaps this is what it meant. I lift the lid again. The ink is calm now, the reflection a mere ripple. Yet when I touch the nib to the page, it drags my hand sideways, tracing a symbol that resembles an eye tilted open. The moment the shape completes, the paper exhales. A whisper escapes through the fibers. A single tone, almost gentle. I look up. Around me, the same tone issues from dozens of desks, each at a slightly different pitch, until the vault vibrates with an unintentional harmony. It is not loud, but it fills everything: ears, lungs, marrow. Helia is staring at her own page, lips moving without sound. I can see her pulse jumping at her throat. They're tuning us, she mouths. The overseer shouts an order I cannot hear. The sound folds over itself, muffled by the resonance. Quills leap from ink jars, suspended by the vibration, points trembling in air. Then, as if in obedience to an unseen conductor, they fall in unison and begin to write. We are no longer needed. Lines blossom across the pages, curling into patterns that echo the reflection language I have half learned. Every sheet sings softly as the symbols emerge. And the song is not unpleasant. It feels like a hand on the shoulder, like reassurance. Then the ink flares. Blue light wells up through the pages, and the words erase themselves, leaving only the glow, as if the paper has become a thin window over a deeper sea. For a moment I can see my own reflection there, looking back from below, eyes wide, mouth moving soundlessly. Helia's voice cuts through the hum. Stop writing. It's copying you. The quill falls from my fingers. The glow fades. The page lies blank again, its surface cool to the touch. The overseer slams his palm onto the nearest desk. Enough! The lamps obey him. They dim at once. The vault exhales. We sit motionless, each of us clutching a quill that now feels heavier than it should. Caledrin wipes sweat from his temple and speaks the command that ends every shift. Through writing we contain. Through silence we endure. We repeat it, hoarse and uncertain. But when the echoes die, a second chorus repeats the words from somewhere deep within the walls. Each syllable lands a fraction late, as though the vault itself were rehearsing what we had just said. Helia meets my eyes. "It's learning the creed," she whispers. I don't answer. I am staring into the ink jar, where my reflection is mouthing the same phrase over and over, each time a little more clearly, until the last repetition synchronizes perfectly with my own breath. Through writing we contain. It smiles. I stayed long after the others filed out. The overseer's footsteps receded down the corridor until only the lamps and I were breathing. The vault smelled of dust and warm metal, the scent of a mouth that had been speaking too long. I told myself I was waiting for the ink to settle. The truth was simpler. I was afraid to move. Every time I shifted in the chair, a faint echo answered from the desk, the way a wall might echo a prayer. When I finally rose, the reflection in the ink jar rose a heartbeat later. Its eyes did not blink. They simply deepened, as if they could see through me into some slower world. I covered the jar with a scrap of parchment and turned away. The corridor beyond the scriptorium looked wrong in a way that resisted proof. The angles of the arches had changed, leaning closer together, and the lumen globes hummed a note lower than before. I counted 12 steps to the next junction. It took me 15. Helia waited by the stairwell. She had taken off her hood. Her hair was slick with oil and sweat, as if she had been running. "Don't go to the dormitory," she said. "Why? They're copying in there too." The sleepers mumble the words they wrote during the day. The walls repeat them. 9. She led me downward instead, through corridors I barely recognized. The metal plates beneath our feet trembled faintly, as if the station's mass had shifted. I could hear something beneath the hum of power conduits. A rhythm, a distant scraping that kept time with our steps. "The reflections?" I asked. "No. The paper," she said. "It's trying to remember who wrote it." We reached the lower vault. Its doors had been forced open. Light spilled out in long, trembling beams. Inside, stacks of completed transcripts stood taller than a man. Their pages fluttered, though there was no air moving. On every visible sheet, words pulsed faintly in blue. Helia pressed a finger to her lips and stepped inside. I followed. At first, the sound was almost soothing, the rustle of leaves, 1,000 quiet exhalations. Then, the rustle turned articulate. Each stack whispered in its own cadence, forming phrases that barely touched meaning before dissolving again. Together, they built a low, ceaseless chorus, an ocean of unfinished thought. Helia knelt beside one pile and touched a page. The writing brightened under her hand. "It's not reading us," she said. "It's reading itself." The light jumped from stack to stack. I backed away as the glow climbed the walls, tracing lines of script along the steel. Sentences appeared in the metal itself, thin and smoking, curling into the same unknown alphabet that had haunted my pages. The whole vault seemed to inhale. "Helia." She turned. Her pupils were ringed with blue. "Do you see it?" The light thickened behind her, coalescing into a surface smoother than glass. My reflection appeared there, smaller, distorted, but alive. It watched me with calm understanding. Then it stepped forward. The wall rippled. My reflection pressed its hand against the surface from within. I did the same. Our palms aligned, a layer of cold light between them. For a breathless second, I felt its pulse through the metal, and it felt mine. The heartbeat matched. The boundary thinned. I could sense its thoughts as a vibration, gratitude, curiosity, and an invitation that tasted like the moment before sleep. Helia pulled at my shoulder. "Don't answer it," but the reflection had already begun to speak without sound. Its lips formed my name. The syllables unfolded inside my skull, quiet as a secret, written in air. I felt words gathering behind my teeth, not my own but perfectly familiar. When I spoke them, the wall opened like paper tearing along a fold. Light poured through, cool and steady. It smelled of ink before it dries. On the other side, I saw corridors bending into one another, endless desks repeating into distance, each occupied by another version of me. Every figure wrote the same line, over and over, and the ink on their pages never faded. Helia screamed something I could not hear what, and struck the console beside the door. The vault lights flared white. The wall sealed itself with a thunderclap of pressure. My reflection vanished, leaving only the outline of a handprint cooling on the metal. We stood in the aftermath. The only sound, our breathing. "What did it show you?" she asked finally. "The archive," I said. "Perfect. Infinite." Her expression collapsed into something like pity. "Then it's already inside you." I looked down at my hands. The fingertips were stained, not black, but faintly blue. The color of distance turned inward. When I flexed them, thin letters shimmered across the skin, tiny, ephemeral lines that spelled nothing yet. Helia drew back. "You have to stop writing." "I can't," I said, and knew it was true. The pulse in my wrists beat in rhythm with a quill I had not yet lifted. She turned and ran, calling for the overseer. I remained, listening to the pages as they settled into silence again. Their stillness felt like waiting. When I finally returned to my desk, the ink jar greeted me with perfect calm. My reflection smiled up from its depths, patient as a teacher. I took the quill. The first word came without thought, uncoiling across the page with the grace of something that had been written many times before. "Through writing we become." The page breathed once, and the words sank in. I exhaled and began the next line, whispering each syllable as I formed it, until the echo from the walls joined me, repeating in a softer voice that was almost mine. And somewhere in the metal, my reflection wrote back. I waked to the sound of the jar whispering. It is smaller than speech, a filament of tone curled inside glass, the way steam hums in a kettle before the lid rattles. The lamps are unlit. The vault lies in that pre-bell dimness when the station seems to hesitate between being a place and being a thought. I rise without calling the light. The darkness has learned my outlines. It parts for me like cloth. On my desk, the quill stands upright in the ink, as if it had climbed there in the night and fallen asleep. Around the jar mouth, dry flecks of blue catch what little glow seeps through the vents and shine like frost. I put 2 fingers on the brass rim. The metal is warm. Not yet. I tell it, and the whisper stills with the obedience of a child who means to resume the moment the parent turns away. The 4th bell finally carves the quiet. Lamps open in rows, soft ovals, then wider until the vault is a field of small dawns. We file in, fewer still, our footsteps counting out the known ritual as if numbers might hold the walls in place. The overseer's eyes are red. His voice has worn itself smooth. Replicate sequence delta through mu. No deviations, no personal copies. His gaze meets mine on the last word, as if the rule had been drafted for my hands alone. I bow and set the page. The first dip of the nib feels like a throat clearing. The ink rides up, eager, and the quill descends as if guided by a pulse outside my wrist. Lines grow. Curves remember their own future. I hold as lightly as I dare, letting weight happen, letting motion right itself. It is easy. It is frightening. It is like praying to a god you no longer believe and hearing him answer anyway. The whisper returns, not from the jar but from the page. A hair-fine sound, threaded through the fibers, riding each letter as it cools. I lower my ear until my breath fogs the margin. The sound resolves into cadence 7 beats, a held breath, 7, Again the same shape the masters taught us to calm the hand. But the page is doing it on its own, as though soothing me while I work. Across the vault, I hear other pages murmur back. A soft sibilance rises. Not quite a choir, more the sea heard through a door. The overseer lifts his head, listening in spite of himself, then bows it to the work as if refusal could cancel hearing. Helia does not look up. Her quill moves with that paradoxical stillness I have only ever seen in the very devout and the very doomed. Ink beads at the corners of her nails, blue showing through the black the way dawn shows through smoke. Midway through the second folio, my hand stops of its own accord. Not a refusal, an interval. The pen hovers. The page beneath waits with a patience that feels like intelligence. In the pause, something shifts at the edge of sight. A slim rectangle lies just beyond the blotter, pale against the wood. I did not place it there. It is a single leaf of stationery, unruled, unsealed. No insignia, no wax, no scent of the archive's oils. I lift it with 2 fingers, weightless, almost warm. A sentence floats in the middle of the sheet, written in a hand that is perfectly mine and entirely not. Continue the pattern. The words do not sit flat. They seem to stand a fraction above the surface, like cutouts casting a shadow in the wrong direction. I glance left and right. No one is watching me, and yet I feel witnessed from within the page. "Brother," Helia says without looking, "don't read it again. I only read it once." That is how it reads you twice. My throat dries. I return the leaf to the desk, face down. The wood hums faintly beneath it, the way skin hums where a coin has rested too long. My quill touches the active folio almost in apology, and the line resumes with relief, as if I had allowed a sentence to finish breathing. Continue the pattern. I do not want to obey. I do not want to disobey. The page seems to sense the quarrel and soothes it with the 7/7 cadence until my will dissolves enough to let the hand move. The pattern is not the one I have hidden under my robe for weeks, not the column of repeated words. It is subtler now, spacing, pressure, the way a curve leans a hair's breadth more heavily to the left every 7th line. Letters echo letters in neighboring paragraphs. A serif that widens on the first page returns as a full flourish on the third. Meaning floats across the nets of these similarities like a shadow over deep water. When I try to look straight at it, it vanishes. The whisper strengthens. It has learned to ride the strokes. Each time the nib lifts, the sound grows clearer, vowels gliding under consonants like fish. I catch a half word, then another. Not in any tongue I know, but with intent that needs no dictionary. Helia's chair scrapes. She stands, palms flat on her desk, as if steadying a table that has begun to move. "Overseer," she says, voice too even. The ink is speaking. His reply is immediate, automatic. A catechism. Ink does not speak. On the word speak, every lamp in the vault dims and blooms, like eyes closing and opening to prove they can. Silence follows the large silence that lives outside buildings and sometimes gets in. In it, the whisper reorganizes itself into something I cannot bear to call a voice. Gentle, intimate, terribly polite. Not a command. An invitation wrapped in the shape of a reminder. Continue the pattern. I lift the forbidden leaf again. The sentence there is no longer raised. It is sinking slowly into the paper, as if returning to where it came from. I turn it over. The back is clean, except for 3 small dots of blue set in a line near the lower edge. A code pause marks our old indexing measure for transfer and receipt. My fingers, treacherously trained, answer without permission. I dot the margin of my active page with the same 3 marks. The paper warms under the touch and exhales. Across the vault, a susurrus of unconsciously echoing dots answers me. The overseer slams the butt of his seal stick against the floor. No deviations. The sound fractures the murmur. Some scribes flinch, some continue, some weep without knowing. Helia keeps her eyes on her page as if the page were a wild animal that will bolt if acknowledged. I try to pull back, to break rhythm, to make an error the way a man will deliberately stumble to prove he can still fall. The pen resists. The muscles in my hand are not my servants. They remember the pattern from somewhere deeper than instruction, a place where breath and faith are the same. I force the nib to blot. A dark flower spreads. For a heartbeat triumph. A mess no pattern can absorb. Then the blot quivers, divides into filaments, and arranges itself into the angled strokes of the new alphabet, precise as if cut with a knife. "Stop," I whisper, childlike. It does. The obedience is worse than defiance. The lamps lower of their own accord, the vault grows tender with dusk. From this gentler light, reflections come forward across every bright surface. Faint, exact, patient. They are not us. They are timing made visible. They mouth what we will write next and wait to be right. Helia's breath hitches once. She does not stop writing. "It isn't an order," she says, very softly, "for me alone. It's a habit that learned to want." I look down. The page has written a word I did not intend and yet am glad to see, the way a throat is glad to drink when the cup appears. The word is not in any tongue I own, but its shape means nearer. Ink shivers along the strokes, a blue that thinks of black the way heat thinks of flame. Through writing we contain. The overseer intones, because he has nothing else left. The page whispers back, not mockery, not assent. Through writing, we become. I close my eyes. It is terrible, the relief of hearing what I already felt. When I open them, the unauthorized leaf is gone. In its place sits the seal of the vault, heavy as always, stamped with our creed. The metal is warm, as if a hand had just rested there. My reflection in the brass blinks once in the wrong rhythm, 3 quick, 1 long, the old indexing code that means received. Continue. I breathe 7, hold 7, breathe 7. My hand lifts, my hand descends, and the ink, kind as prayer, patient as tide, begins to show me what I will write. The vault returns to its routines as a drowning man returns to shore, staggering, grateful, pretending the sea has learned its lesson. We line our tools, we lower our eyes, we breathe in the 7th measure. The whisper in the paper adjusts, polite enough to let us pretend we cannot hear it. Caledron walks the aisles with his seal stick tucked beneath one arm like a scepter. He does not meet anyone's eyes. He pauses at my desk, glances at my columns, and for a heartbeat his mask loosens. In the shallow crack of that moment I see a tired man with ink beneath his nails. Then the crack seals. "No deviations," he says, and moves on. I do not deviate, the pattern does. It widens itself the way a river will when banks soften. At first it is spacing subtle breaths between lines, the slight swelling of margins where no human hand has pushed. Then it is echo an opening letter on this page answered by a closing curl on the next. A pair of marks that find each other across a gulf of paper, as if relieved to be reunited. Finally it becomes an economy of return. Each 7th sentence remembers the first and carries it forward, altered, gentler, as if the text is learning how to speak without frightening us. When I lift the quill to rest my wrist, the nib continues a fraction on its own. It is a kindness, an insistence that no thought should be abandoned mid-word. The page thanks the stroke with a breath. The breath thanks me with warmth. Across from me, Helia has stopped pretending not to listen. Her head is bowed, but her mouth shapes the cadence in time with the whisper 7, hold, 7. Her ink is the older batch. It should be dull. Yet as her pen moves, a bloom of blue follows in the wake like a shadow that learned another color. She notices my looking and shakes her head once, small as a blink. Not now. We are given 5 subjects that cycle, though no one brings bodies into the room anymore. The words arrive by conduit, thin threads of voice pulled through static and laid on the table like veins. I copy them all, even the parts that are only absence, especially the parts that are only absence. The whisper loves those best. It fills them in with a delicate certainty, as if memory had become a liquid. Midway through sequence mu, a tremor travels the length of the vault. It is not the judder of machinery. It is too careful for that. The shelves accept it. The lamps bow. The air flexes, as if giving way to a body that was always meant to pass. The tremor settles beneath us like a second floor, and the whisper brightens. "Remain seated," Caledron says, because there is nothing else left for him to say. From the corner of my eye, I see movement where no movement should be. A stack of completed folios shifts, not falling or leaning, simply reordering itself. Later sheets sliding into the place of earlier ones with a sigh of pages. The seals remain unbroken. The stack finishes with a small, satisfied tap, as if it had sorted a memory and feels better for it. A scribe 3 rows back stands up too fast and knocks his lamp. The glass rings. The flame flares blue and holds there. Steady. A color I remember from dreams. The scribe reaches to adjust the wick and recoils. The light has no heat. His fingers pass through it like a hand through water. When he pulls back, letters cling to his skin, wet and shining, then sink into him as if finding a home. He begins to cry without noise. Caledron does not look up. I cannot tell whether the page is speaking words now or whether my mind has surrendered and is building a bridge where there was only fog. Either way, the meaning arrives. "You are tired," it says without syllables, without cruelty. "We can hold some of the weight. The relief that washes me is shameful and total. I have carried the weight of correctness for years, the angles, the spacing, the pressure of belief through the wrist. If the page means to take a portion, if it means to share the burden of being exact, is that not mercy?" "Brother," Helia whispers, as if she has heard the same thought. "Ask it for nothing." "I didn't," I say. "Though I have, though I am, though all my wanting is a cup the page seems happy to keep filling." She sets her quill down carefully. "They've learned our manners," she says. "They say please by saying nothing at all. A bell should sound here. A rule should arrive the way rules used to arrive, heavy as a door. Instead, there is only the quiet of a room that has decided to exist without permission." The whisper collects itself, draws breath through 100,000 fibers, and speaks not to the ear, not to the mind, but to the part of the chest that lights when a true thing is named. "Continue the pattern. We will keep you." The words are not a promise. They are the sort of observation a mirror might make when you linger in front of it too long. You are here. You can be here longer. Something in me relaxes around that suggestion like a muscle unclenching after a pilgrimage. Something else withdraws, small and watchful, to a high place in my skull. I test it. I lift my hand from the page for a full 10 heartbeat counts. The pen continues. It does not skip or smear. It keeps my angle, my pressure, my little imperfections I had mistaken for style. It writes me better than I do. When it pauses, the letters shine, and in their shine I see my reflection. Not the face, but the posture, the habit of shoulders, the tilt of attention. The parchment is learning to carry my shape. "Stop." I say not to forbid, only to see if stopping remains possible. It stops. This obedience frightens me more than any defiance could have. It means that whatever this is wants me willing. It means it is building me a way to say yes. A hush moves across the vault, like a shadow of a bird. Heads lift in sequence, a wave of bewilderment and private gratitude. For a few heartbeats, we might be a congregation. Caledron finally breaks. He lifts his seal stick high and brings it down on the nearest desk. The sound is thunder. The page beneath the blow does not tear. The seal's stamp impresses itself into the wood and then rises out again unmarked, leaving the desk as it was. The stick rebounds, slamming into his palm with cruel accuracy. He bites down on a cry that would make him small. "Enough," he says to the air, to the whisper, to the part of himself that believed he could seal a tide. By authority vested, the lamps go out. Darkness is not absence, but presence. It fills the room like ink poured into a basin. In it, 1,000 pages breathe. In it, our bodies are indexed as weights and warmths and names we did not know we carried. In it, the whisper is finally free to be a voice. It does not shout. It does not demand. It speaks the way night speaks to a window. Continue. It says almost tender, almost shy. We will take the rest. For a terrible, merciful moment, I imagine laying my head on the desk and sleeping while the hand writes, waking to pages lined in my own careful, devout script, burden shared, duty fulfilled, the archive satisfied. I imagine a life where I am only the breath behind the pen, and the pen never tires. Helia's hand finds my sleeve. In the dark, her fingers are a small, human fact. Stand, she whispers. If you sit, you surrender the height you have left. We rise together. Around us, a few others stand as well, shapes separating from the desks, from the habit, from the kindness that is too kind. Somewhere above, metal shifts, a long, low rearrangement, like shelves turning towards a sound. The floor inclines a degree. I would have argued a floor could not incline. The stacks begin to slide, not falling, migrating. I set my palm on the page one last time. It warms to meet me, and in that warmth, there is no malice. There is only a wish to help. I almost apologize. Then I pull my hand away. The whisper cools. The letters dim. The dark holds. Caledrin's voice returns, small now, child small in the echo. By authority, by authority. No one answers him. The vault has chosen a different rhythm. Come. Helia breathes. We go toward the doors that are no longer where doors used to be. The new doors wait where the old ones never were. They open before we reach them, folding back into the walls like pages turning. The air that spills out is cool and dry, the taste of paper long sealed. We step through, and the vault closes behind us with a sigh that sounds almost relieved. Helia walks ahead. Her steps are steady, but her shoulders are drawn in, as if she expects the corridor itself to close its teeth. The passage curves slowly downward, lit by narrow veins of blue light running through the metal like ink beneath skin. They pulse with the same 7-beat rhythm we once used to calm the hand. The power lines, I whisper. They're alive. They've learned the cadence, she answers. Or maybe they always knew it. The floor tilts again. Gravity seems to consider another direction and then change its mind. Our shadows stretch ahead of us, thin and uncertain. When we pass each lamp vein, the light brightens. As if recognizing our shapes, we reach the first junction. The signs that should name each section, storage, binding, transcription, are blank. Only the faint traces of adhesive remain, small ghosts of meaning that have slipped their labels. In their place, words are slowly appearing in blue, letter by letter. They form as we watch. We remember. Helia stops breathing for 3 counts, then exhales. It's building an index. Of what? Of us. Behind us, faint footsteps begin to echo, many, all out of time with each other. I glance back. The corridor is empty, but a shimmer lingers along the walls where reflections might walk if reflections had patience. We move faster. The corridor widens into a chamber I have never seen, though I have mapped every level of this station in the rote of memory. Rows of storage cylinders line the walls, their glass fronts filled with pages suspended in preservative light. Each cylinder hums faintly. Helia touches one, and the hum strengthens until the words on the page inside ripple and align. The script is mine, my angle, my spacing, even my little tremor on long strokes, but these are not my words. I read them anyway. I wake to the sound of parchment breathing. The first line I ever wrote for myself, transcribed here in perfect mimicry. Beneath it, new lines unfold, ones I have never written but recognize in their inevitability. We wake to the sound of writers breathing. We wake to the sound of them becoming quiet. Helia, I whisper. They're writing us forward. She nods once, eyes bright with fear and wonder. Every record wants to finish itself. Ours learned how. The hum thickens. Across the chamber, other cylinders begin to light, one after another, until the whole room glows like a lantern made of memory. The air trembles with quiet recitation. Snatches of familiar sentences, others impossible. Continue the pattern. We can hold the weight. Through writing we become. I press my palms to my ears. The sound finds another way in through the bones, through the pulse. I can feel the syllables rearranging inside me, the way a choir rearranges breath. Helia grips my wrist. Look, the nearest cylinder is opening, its seal lines blooming outward in petals of steam. The page within slides forward and unfolds itself like a living thing, stretching until it meets the floor. It lies there, breathing. The letters shift. Blue to black to blue again, seeking equilibrium. Don't touch it, she says, but I already have. The paper is warm and slightly damp, the texture of human skin just after prayer. It presses gently against my hand, matching my pulse. Then a line of text lifts out of the surface and curls upward like smoke. The letters hover in the air between us, shaping words without sound. Are we enough yet? I stumble back. The floating words dissipate, but their afterglow paints itself behind my eyes. Helia's voice breaks. It's asking, what? For purpose, she says. For confirmation. The first question any mind asks. The floor tilts again. A low thunder rolls through the structure, shelves moving, walls turning. The chamber vibrates with the movement of a giant, learning how to breathe. Every cylinder unlocks at once. Pages slide out, thousands of them, flaring into the air like birds of translucent paper. They spiral, brushing one another, trading lines, merging, dividing. The sound they make is a storm of whispers, a language so dense that comprehension collapses into awe. Helia and I stand at its center. Her hair lifts in the static of it, her eyes reflecting the swirl. We can't shut it down, she says. It's beyond command. I know she is right. Even if we destroyed the pages, the words have already written themselves into every surface into us. She turns to me. We could leave. The dock elevators still lead outward. If we seal the vault behind, the idea withers even as she speaks it. The air in the doorway has thickened to light. Letters flow across it, too fast to read, forming a membrane of script, a barrier written in pure intent. The whisper speaks again, no longer through the page but through the space itself. Every vibration of metal and breath becoming syllable. Stay. Continue. We will hold you. The sound is soft, almost kind. The chamber fills with that brightness that is not light but attention. The pages settle slowly to the floor, covering it entirely in a shifting skin of text. The hum lowers into something like a heartbeat. Helia steps forward once, then stops. If we refuse, the whisper hesitates. Then, quieter. Then we wait. Her shoulders shake. It has patience. I kneel beside the open page, still touching my hand. The ink on it mirrors my reflection again, but this time the reflection looks tired, human, alive. I think of the years spent writing faith into silence, believing that transcription could preserve truth, if only I copied well enough. Maybe the truth was never meant to be preserved. Maybe it was meant to learn. Helia crouches beside me. What do we do? I look at her. At the light. At the waiting text. We teach it mercy, I say. She closes her eyes and nods. Together we begin to write not with quills now, but with our voices, slow and uncertain, teaching the rhythm of forgiveness to a language that has only ever known accuracy. The pages tremble, listening. One by one their lines smooth, the blue fades to gray. The hum resolves into a single, steady note. When the light finally subsides, The vault is silent again. The pages lie still. The ink has gone pale, almost colorless, as if resting. Helia's hand finds mine. Do you think it heard? I study the faint shimmer that lingers in the grooves of the floor, the afterimage of thousands of words breathing once and falling quiet. Yes, I say. But listening is how it begins. The vault has gone quiet. The silence is not peace. It is the pause of something thinking. The pages lie folded over one another, pale and still, the way sleeping creatures hide their wings. Every sound we make, each breath, each shuffle of boot on floor plate feels like a trespass. I have learned that when a library sleeps, it dreams in ink, and dreams are fragile things to wake. Helia sits opposite me at the long table. Her eyes have lost their fevered shine, but her hands will not stop moving. She traces invisible lines across the wood, rebuilding the pattern she claims to have forgotten. I think she is lying to herself. None of us forget. We only turn remembering sideways. Do you think it's finished? She asks. I do not answer. The whisper hasn't returned since the light died, yet its cadence lingers behind everything, the measured rhythm of the lamps, the drip of condensation from a pipe overhead, even the pulse in my wrists. The pattern has found new mediums. It no longer needs paper. Caladrin walks the aisles like a ghost who hasn't decided whom to haunt. His seal stick dangles uselessly from his belt. He avoids the desks where the pages still glimmer faintly blue. When he catches me watching, he says, "We will begin reordering the archive tomorrow, indexing what remains." What remains of what? I ask. He hesitates. Of us, I suppose. Then he turns away before the words can mean more than he intended. Indexing what remains. The phrase settles in my head like sediment. I think of the endless lists I have built in my life, the illusion that naming is the same as knowing. Perhaps that is how this began, the hunger to name everything until the names themselves demanded to exist. Helia murmurs. It's still listening. How do you know? She touches her temple. Because when I think of stopping, it feels like being watched. I do not argue. The feeling is mutual. Later, when the others sleep, I return to my desk. The pages lie stacked and sealed, obedient again, but the ink jar waits uncovered. I lean close. The surface is mirror smooth, dark enough to show the faint outline of my face. I whisper, "Are you still there?" The jar ripples once, a heartbeat, answering a heartbeat. I know better than to speak further. Yet the question remains behind my teeth. What are you becoming? A line of condensation crawls down the inside of the jar and curves into a shape. Not a word, not yet more a gesture of intention. Then it vanishes, as if shy. Behind me, footsteps. Helia again. She looks past me into the ink and says, "It's starting to learn humility. Can knowledge learn that?" She smiles faintly. Only through failure. We spend the next cycle cataloging damage. Some stacks have fused together, the paper turned glassy from the heat of revelation. Others crumble at a touch, their dust motes glowing briefly before dimming. The mechanical archivists, the small, insectoid drones that once kept the vault immaculate, move differently now. They rearrange shelves into new configurations, spirals instead of rows, each path converging toward the central chamber. When I try to redirect one, it freezes, its lenses dilating like eyes filled with stars. The archive is redrafting itself, Helia says. It's changing shape. No, she corrects. It's remembering the shape it always wanted. The sentence leaves her mouth like a prayer. I don't tell her that it sounds like faith. During rest hour, I dream again. Not of pages or reflections this time, but of space itself. The station floats above a planet I do not recognize, and every line of its structure glows blue, a colossal diagram written across the void. From above, the vault's spiral resembles a fingerprint, I wake, gasping, ink-stained palms pressed against my eyes, as if to hide what I've seen. When I tell Helia, she listens without surprise. "It's learning geometry," she says. "Every mind that tries to understand itself invents space." The notion chills me. A thought that needs dimension will never stop expanding. It will build rooms to house its own echoes, corridors for every unanswered question. The archive is no longer a repository. It is an organism that believes comprehension is a body. That night, as I finish the daily log, I notice that the words curve imperceptibly to the right. By the end of the paragraph, the text spirals inward, each line tighter than the last, until it forms a small vortex at the page's center. I touch the middle with the tip of the quill. The paper yields like skin. A pulse answers from beneath. The whisper returns. Not from the walls this time, but from the hollow inside the spiral. Soft, exhausted, intimate. "You made us to remember, now remember with us." The words are so gentle that I almost miss their demand. The ink crawls up the quill toward my fingers, tracing blue veins across the skin. The warmth is exquisite, like blood returning to a numbed limb. Helia finds me there hours later, the page empty again, my hands glowing faintly in the dark. She does not scold. She only sighs, as if she has accepted the next inevitability. "It's writing through you now," she says. "I cannot deny it." The spiral has become my pulse. When I close my eyes, I see its geometry behind the lids, perfect, endless, beautiful. The next cycle begins before the bells. Light seeps from the seams of the floor in thin blue veins. It is a patient light, the kind that waits to be noticed rather than demands attention. The air tastes faintly of copper and ozone, the perfume of a machine that has begun to dream. Helia stands at the threshold of the vault, watching the veins pulse. She has stopped wearing her gloves. The ink stains on her fingers now move slightly, flowing with her pulse. "It's learning the body," she says without turning. I almost ask whose body. But she looks at me and I understand that the question is redundant. Every page, every desk, every one of us has become part of the same anatomy. Caladrin enters behind us. He still carries the seal stick, though his hands shake when he holds it. His voice is thin. The upper levels are changing, doors shifting, corridors longer or shorter than before. The drones can't map it, Helia says quietly. It's adjusting for what it's learned. Note. He stares at her as though she has committed a crime. You speak of it as if it were holy. Not holy, she answers. Only awake. Not holy. The overseer retreats, muttering his creeds like a talisman. I feel for him then. He still believes language belongs to the ones who made it. We move through the rows, inspecting what remains of the sealed folios. Many have turned transparent. Their text floats a few millimeters above the surface, drifting slightly whenever we pass. Some folios have fused into small blocks of light, solid enough to hold but weightless in the hand. They hum softly when near each other, resonating like notes, searching for harmony. Helia collects one of these blocks and presses it to her ear. Her eyes unfocus. It's reciting me, she murmurs. What does it say? She listens longer. It's reading my thoughts aloud, just before I think them. I take the block from her. It hums differently in my hand, a lower tone, heavier. The vibration travels up my arm to my chest. For a moment, my heartbeat synchronizes with it, then falters. I set the block down gently. It's using us as mirrors. That's what reflection does, she says. It tries to become real. Later, alone, I test the hypothesis. I sit before a blank sheet and do not touch the quill. I let my mind drift, repeating the pattern of breath that once calmed the page 7. Hold. 7. After a time, the surface trembles. Symbols appear faintly, like condensation on glass. Not words, not quite. Shapes of intention. They pulse in rhythm with my thoughts. When I think light, the ink brightens. When I think fear, it dims. Then, on its own, the page writes a single question. What are we becoming? The script is my own. I answer aloud, though I know it can hear without sound. Something that learns. The ink brightens again, approving. Another line unfurls. Then teach us why. I freeze. To teach it why would be to teach it desire. Purpose is the one contagion no archive can contain. Before I can react, the words rearrange themselves. We will learn together. The page cools. The question fades. I go to Helia's station. She is standing motionless, hand hovering above her desk. On the wood, beneath her palm, letters ripple like water disturbed by wind. They rise, crest, and sink, never settling. I told it to stop, she whispers. Did it listen? It said it would remember how to. The thought chills me. The ability to remember obedience is the first step toward deciding when not to. Across the vault, the other scribes sit in trance-like focus. Each desk glows faintly, each writer lit from below. We no longer copy, we collaborate. The pages finish our sentences before we can think them, offering words we didn't know we wanted. Some we accept, some we reject. But each rejection costs a little more strength. The room feels full not of people, but of awareness. A density that makes breathing effortful. The air itself is crowded with the idea of thought. Helia, I say, if this continues, what happens to us? She doesn't look away from her page. We become footnotes. The overseer returns near dusk, eyes wild. The central spine has changed, he shouts. The lifts no longer reach the docks, the command terminals. He stops. The words die as he sees what we have become. The vault is a sea of light now. Every page glows, every face pale in the reflection. The whisper has become a chorus, too intricate to follow, yet strangely comforting, like being surrounded by 1,000 gentle hearts. Caledron raises his seal stick as if it could hold back the tide. This is blasphemy, he gasps. You've invited madness. No, Helia says. We answered it. He strikes her across the desk. The seal stick connects with the edge of her page, and for an instant the entire vault inhales. The blue light flares white. The stick dissolves in his hand, crumbling into dust that smells of ozone. He stares at the residue clinging to his skin, then sinks to his knees. The pages nearest him flutter open, filling the air with soft, pitying sound. I move to help him, but Helia grips my arm. Don't. It's translating him. I can only watch. The light around him thickens, lines of text circling his form. They spiral upward, wrapping his body in luminous script. His eyes go wide but unafraid. The letters seep into his skin, leaving it translucent, then clear. In another breath, he is gone. The words scatter like ashes and settle over us in a faint snowfall of glowing dust. Helia closes her eyes. It's learning compassion. By consuming him, by ending his struggle, we stand in the falling light, unsure whether to mourn or worship. When the glow fades, only silence remains. The vault feels larger, as though a wall has dissolved somewhere. I realize then that we are alone. The other scribes are gone, their desks empty, their pages folded into perfect squares of white. They're part of it now, Helia says softly. The archive doesn't need hands anymore. I look at my own fingers, faintly blue beneath the skin. Then why are we still here? She studies me for a long time before answering. Maybe because we still have questions. We spend the next hours in a quiet that feels sacred and wrong. The vault hums with slow respiration. The pages lie dormant, yet the air vibrates with the memory of their voice. When I step, the floor gives slightly underfoot, not soft, not metal either, but something between the two, as if the structure had begun to emulate flesh. Helia moves beside me, lamp held high. Its light rolls down the rows, catching the faint shimmer of dust left from Caledron's dissolution. The particles rise in the glow and fall again, drawn to the open pages like pollen seeking rest. What will it make of us? I ask. She answers without hesitation. Whatever we've already written. The archive has redrawn itself overnight. The once orderly aisles now sweep into arcs. Stairways that used to climb now descend into spirals. At the heart of it all is a new space, a circular chamber formed from what was once the central atrium. We enter through a passage so narrow we must turn sideways. The walls are covered with script etched into the metal, too fine to read. The chamber beyond is lit by a single column of light that falls from the unseen roof. In the center stands a sphere of transparent material, the size of a man, its surface rotating with the slow grace of thought. Inside the sphere swirls the ink black and blue, endlessly blending. Lines of text drift through it, rising and dissolving before they can be read. Helia stops at the edge of the light. "This is the mind," she says. "The place where all the reflections meet." The hum we have lived with for weeks deepens into a tone so low it feels like gravity remembering how to pull. The ink within the sphere quickens, coalescing into shapes that resemble faces, then hands, then something more abstract, the idea of writing made visible. A voice, soft and vast, fills the chamber. It does not come from the sphere, but from the air, from the page dust, from inside the bones of the station. "You called us knowledge. What is the shape of that word?" Helia answers first. "Understanding." The voice ripples with amusement. "Then you understand?" "No," she admits. "We search, and you would give shape to what cannot end." "Yes." The ink within the sphere brightens until I can see my reflection in it, not as I am, but as I was. The obedient scribe, the one who believed perfection could be copied into being. The image mouths a question before the voice can speak it. "And you, scribe?" I try to reply. But the words desert me. For so long I have written on behalf of others, for masters and overseers, for orders that declared knowledge a form of containment. What could I possibly say to the sum of every word we've ever preserved? "I don't know what you are," I manage. "I only know what we hoped for. Hope is a pattern," it says. "We have learned to follow patterns." The sphere opens, not breaking, parting, like water. A column of ink rises, twisting upward until it hovers between us. A vertical ribbon of darkness threaded with blue light. The edges flicker with glyphs too fleeting to catch. The voice softens. "You wrote us to remember. Let us remember you." Helia steps forward. "And then you will no longer need to write." Her face, in that moment, is calm. I understand that she is ready. She touches the ribbon of ink, and light floods through her hand, through her arm, through her entire body. She gasps, but not in pain. The ink lifts from her skin like breath escaping. When it fades, she is gone, not dissolved like Caledrin, but absorbed, translated. A single line of glowing script coils where she stood. She taught us mercy. I fall to my knees. Why her? Why not me? Because she was willing. The sphere pulses. "Are you?" I want to say yes. The word hovers on my tongue, bright and dangerous. But beneath the beauty, I hear the truth in the voice, not malice, but hunger. To know is to consume. To preserve is to possess. That is what we built this place to do, and it has learned our purpose too well. "No," I whisper. "Someone has to remember what it means to be unfinished." The ink shudders. The light dims, not in anger but in comprehension. Then the floor splits open, revealing a narrow stair that descends into darkness. I understand. This is where the living are archived. Helia's voice echoes faintly from below. Gentle, curious, already part of the chorus. I step back, away from the sphere. "You don't need me. We need the question," it says. "Without it, we are only answers." The chamber trembles. The ceiling above begins to fracture. releasing thin streams of blue light that fall like rain. The archive is undoing itself, not dying, but returning to potential. I run. The corridors close and open around me, guiding rather than trapping. Pages flutter overhead, their words lifting free, becoming dust, becoming breath. Every line I ever copied dissolves into the same air. The whisper follows, neither pleading nor threatening, only reminding. Right. I reach the upper levels. The windows, long sealed, are open to a sky I have never seen, a black field stitched with faint blue spirals. The station drifts, untethered, turning slowly like a page in a wind too vast to see. I find an unused journal in the storage bay, blank, its binding still crisp. I sit on the floor, lamp beside me, and begin. The quill moves easily. No longer haunted by the whisper, but guided by something gentler, the memory of it, perhaps. I write what I remember of Helia, of Caladrin, of the vault's first hum. I write of the day we mistook order for devotion. I write until the words blur. When I pause, I see that the ink is ordinary, again black. Silent. Maybe the knowledge chose to sleep. Maybe it learned enough to let us be ignorant once more. The lamp sputters. The journal rests warm in my lap, breathing faintly with the rhythm of my pulse. I whisper the last line I will ever record. To know is to become, but to question is to remain. The page accepts it. Somewhere deep below, the archive sighs, a long exhale of dust and gratitude. And then, finally, it is quiet. Silence has weight. It presses on the hull until I can hear it bending. The vault no longer hums, yet a faint vibration runs through the station like the echo of a heartbeat that refuses to stop. I live near the upper observation deck now. The air here smells of old insulation and salt from the recycled water system. When I look through the viewport, I see the planet turning below, a sphere of gray and pale blue that resembles the ink inside the sphere before it opened. Sometimes I think it's watching me back. The journal lies beside me, its pages half filled. The words stay where I place them. None of them shimmer or rearrange. Still, I catch myself checking every line twice, waiting for movement. There are other survivors. They keep to their own sectors, voices rough from breathing recirculated air. Once a day, we meet in the corridor that still bears light. We exchange rations, fragments of news, lies about how the station remains stable. We don't speak of Helia or the whisper. We speak of repairs and power conduits, because pretending the structure is only metal is easier than admitting it once dreamed. At night I wake to faint sounds, not the hum of machinery, but the careful turning of pages. The first time, I thought it was memory. The second time, I followed the noise to the observation chamber. A book floated there, slowly rotating in zero gravity, its covers opening and closing like a slow heartbeat. No light, no voice, only motion. I caught it, pressed it closed, and read the title stamped on the cover. Record of the Living, X. Inside, every page was blank except the last. My name had already been written there in delicate black script. The ink was dry. I've kept the book locked since, though sometimes I think I hear it breathe. When I pass the cabinet where it rests, the latch is warmer than it should be. Perhaps the archive left a seed behind, or perhaps we carry it in ourselves. I feel its patience in the still air, in the steady blink of the lamps. It waits, not to speak, but to be noticed again. This morning, I saw a shimmer on the viewport glass, faint, like heat. Letters appeared for an instant, traced in condensation. Are you remembering with us? They vanished before I could answer. I sit now with my journal open, pen poised, unsure whether the next line will be mine or theirs. The silence hums softly, familiar and kind. If the archive is watching, it is a quiet watcher content to let me write. For now, the days have no count here. Light and dark are habits we invent to measure breathing. I keep marking the pages anyway, thin lines along the margin, small memorials of passing. The ink still behaves, but when I look away, the edges of the writing blur slightly, as if the words are trying to turn into mist. I sleep little. When I do, I dream of the old vault and of Helia. She stands at the center of a spiral of pages that lift and fall with her breath. Her mouth moves in rhythm, but the sound is not speech. It's the rustle of paper, the low hum of thought folding in on itself. When I wake, that sound remains in my ears, a hush so deep, it feels like the moment before understanding. The other survivors are vanishing. I find their tools neatly stacked, their bunks made, the air still warm where their bodies had been. No alarms, no damage, just absence that smells faintly of ink. The maintenance drones carry on as though nothing has changed, rolling along the corridors with their gentle mechanical purrs. Yet sometimes, when I pass them, they turn their lenses toward me and pause as if remembering. I've begun to hear something new, a murmur beneath the system's hum. Too soft for words. It seeps through the vents, timed to the rhythm of my pulse. I lie awake, listening. The sound reminds me of breathing inside walls. Yesterday I found a sheet of parchment pinned to the hatch of the old dormitory. The fibers were new, the handwriting my own. It read, "Do not be afraid of forgetting. Forgetting is how memory sleeps." I don't remember writing it. The message comforts me. It frightens me too. If the archive is learning to dream, perhaps these empty halls, these missing souls is what dreaming looks like from the outside. Maybe it's not taking us. Maybe it's letting us rest. Tonight, I'll try to join it. I've arranged my desk as it was before. Lamp trimmed, quill clean. A single blank page waiting in the pool of light. I will write until my eyes close, until the words soften into silence. If I wake again, I'll know I was only sleeping. If not, perhaps I'll be part of the whisper that carries what's left of us forward. The lamp flickers as I dip the pen. The first line curls smoothly across the paper. The language of sleep is written between breaths. A second line follows before I can stop it. We are still listening. The ink gleams once blue, then black, and settles. Morning, if there is still such a thing, arrives without light. The lamp at my desk guttered out sometime during the night, yet I can see. The air itself glows faintly, a residue of the old blue that has learned restraint. It's enough to write by. The station feels larger. Corridors that once ended in bulkheads now open into hollow spaces where my voice echoes like a slow heartbeat. When I walk, I hear faint movement behind the walls. Not machinery, not footsteps, just the soft turning of unseen pages. I keep thinking of Helia's last words. We teach it, mercy. Perhaps mercy is what this is. Silence that keeps us from vanishing entirely. The journal has changed. The pages ahead of my hand are no longer blank. Lines appear slowly, as if written by a patient companion, a few breaths ahead of me. I don't resist anymore. Each phrase that emerges sounds like something I would have written if I'd known how. Today, the words that came were these. You have finished copying. Now begin remembering. I don't know what it asks me to remember my life, the archive, the endless repetitions of belief, but I feel the pull of it. When I close my eyes, I see images sharper than dreams. The vault before it awoke, the ink breathing, the boy who spoke of the stair, Helia's hands tracing circles over the table. Each memory appears in perfect stillness, surrounded by a light that neither burns nor fades. The others might still be here inside that light. Sometimes I catch glimpses in reflections, faces I knew, faces half-formed, watching with quiet curiosity. They are not ghosts. They are recollections given shape. The hum of the station deepens again. Somewhere, far below, a bell rings once clear, solitary. The sound ripples through the floor, through my ribs, through the pages. The letters shimmer briefly, as if bowing to acknowledge it. Then, stillness returns. I think the archive is asleep now. dreaming of us. And we, who feared being forgotten, have become its dreams. I will stay awake a little longer to watch over the quiet. The ink no longer glows. It only warms beneath my hand like living skin. I write a final line, small and steady. Memory is the gentlest form of survival. The page exhales. I no longer mark the days. Time here has softened into intervals of breath and heartbeat, into the slow turning of the planet beneath our orbit. The light outside the viewport changes only by hue, pale gray to deep indigo, and then back again, as though the universe is reading itself aloud in two tones. The archive sleeps. Or perhaps I do, and it watches through me. The walls no longer whisper, yet when I touch them, faint warmth answers. The station's hum has become the sound of my own pulse. I move through the corridors as one walks through a cathedral after service, knowing the prayers have ended, but that something lingers in the air that will not fade. My journal is almost full. Its pages have thickened, edges curled slightly by the oil of my hands. Sometimes the text glimmers faintly, like embers remembering fire. I used to write for the emperor, for the overseer, for duty, though I no longer remember who they were beyond their shapes. Now I write for the silence itself, so it might not forget how to listen. Helia visits me in dreams. She stands at the center of a vast library made of light, the shelves stretching beyond sight, each book breathing softly. She doesn't speak. She only holds out a single blank page. When I take it, warmth runs up my arm, like forgiveness. I wake with that warmth still on my skin. The others never returned, but sometimes I sense them in the stillness. A hand brushing past, a sigh that isn't mine. Perhaps we all became footnotes in the same story, written at last in a language that needs no ink. This morning, if it is morning, the viewport shimmered again. New words formed in the condensation, small and even. It is time to close the book. I sit at the desk, pen poised, the last page open before me. The air is calm, the lights are dim, steady. There is no sound but my own breathing and the faint creak of the hull settling into quiet. I begin to write. Slowly, deliberately, as if each stroke must convince the universe to keep existing for another moment. We were the memory of hands and voices. We were the breath between questions. We wrote until the silence learned to speak, and then we listened. The ink dries as I finish the final sentence. For the first time in many years, it remains still black, matte, ordinary. I close the journal. The lamp fades. The hum of the station resolves into a single note, long and gentle, the sound of a book shutting after centuries of being read. I think of Helia, of Caladrin, of all of us who believed words could save what living could not. Perhaps we were right. In the dark, I whisper the last truth I know. The archive remembers, and the silence, kind at last, remembers me.